A sudden splash of water caught her attention. The human had stepped into a shallow pool. Ripples spread across the surface, reflecting moonlight in 1,000 tiny sparks. She paused, fascinated, noticing how the human adapted to every situation. He moved like he belonged to this jungle, as if he had studied it for years. The Huntress crouched low, her mind racing with possibilities. This human was no ordinary prey. He was clever, unpredictable, and patient. She began to feel a strange respect, something dangerous for a hunter who had always considered humans weak. She had never felt this before, a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and desire to learn. The human stopped near a massive tree with roots twisting like giant snakes. He knelt and touched the ground, placing small leaves and stones in a pattern. The huntress's eyes widened. What was he doing? She could not understand, but she knew it was deliberate, a plan, something beyond simple survival. Suddenly, a sound erupted from behind, a low growl, and the human jumped back. The huntress tensed, expecting a trap, a wild animal, or some defense mechanism, but the growl faded, and the human's calm returned, almost as if he'd been expecting it. Her curiosity turned into fascination. This human seemed to understand the jungle in ways she never imagined. The huntress crept closer, closer than ever, her shadow melting into the darkness. She could see the human's face now, focused, alert, yet strangely calm. He adjusted the arrangement of leaves and sticks, creating small barriers and lines. It was as if he were preparing something. But what? The human suddenly stopped, his head tilted, listening, and then he whispered softly, a sound so low, almost a hum, that the huntress could not understand. It seemed to resonate with the jungle, and for a moment, she felt a strange vibration in her chest. The human smiled faintly, almost as if he cast a spell or understood a secret. The huntress paused, unsure if she should strike or continue watching, her instincts in conflict. A small bird flew past, startling the human, but he reacted quickly. He ducked, grabbed a branch, and used it to create a small diversion. The huntress watched in amazement. This human was turning the jungle into his tool. Every movement was calculated, every reaction precise. She realized that capturing him would not be simple, that this hunt was more dangerous than she had imagined. Suddenly, the human disappeared behind a thick wall of vines. The huntress froze, her instincts screaming, but curiosity held her back. She waited, listening, trying to detect any sign of his movement. Minutes passed, the jungle filled with eerie silence, broken only by distant animal cries. Then, without warning, the human appeared again, carrying something small in his hands. He moved carefully, deliberately, unaware of how much he had already captivated her. The huntress felt a pull, a strange desire to understand him, to know what he was planning. She realized this hunt was no longer just a mission. It had become a puzzle, a challenge she could not resist. The human stopped suddenly, looking up at a faint glow ahead. The huntress froze, hiding behind a massive tree trunk, her heart pounding. The glow flickered, mysterious and strange, as if inviting them both. She watched silently, unsure she should move closer, her mind torn between instinct and curiosity. And then she saw it, a small clearing, bathed in soft moonlight. The human stepped forward cautiously, and the huntress held her breath. For the first time, the hunter felt like she was being hunted by her own curiosity. The human was clever, unpredictable, and full of surprises, and the jungle seemed to whisper a warning. The true challenge had only just begun. The jungle was silent in a way that made every small sound echo. Leaves shivered even when the wind barely moved. The huntress crouched on a thick tree branch, hidden among the vines. Her glowing eyes never left the human below, her every sense alert. She had followed him for hours, and now curiosity outweighed hunger. Something about this human was unlike anything she had seen before. The human moved carefully into the small clearing, the soft moonlight casting long shadows across the ground. He stopped for a moment, looking around as if sensing eyes upon him. But he did not panic. He did not run. Instead, he knelt and began to arrange sticks, stones, and large leaves in patterns that seemed deliberate. The huntress watched silently, her mind tried to understand, her instincts alert. Why was he doing this? Was it a trap, a signal, or some strange ritual? She moved closer, silent and slow, following the faint smell of smoke and damp earth. Every step was measured, her body blending into the shadows. The human did not notice her presence. Or perhaps he had already sensed it. He was focused, calm, and strangely confident. The huntress felt a tingle of unease, the first hint that this human might be smarter than her. The human gathered large leaves and tied them together with thin vines. He created small barriers around himself, almost like walls. The huntress tilted her head, confused, yet fascinated. No human had ever prepared for the jungle with such thoughtfulness. Most would hide, run, or make simple traps, but this one he built carefully, as if constructing something more permanent. Suddenly, he paused and looked around, as if listening for something. The huntress froze, unsure she should move closer. Her alien instincts told her danger lurked here, but her curiosity screamed louder than fear. She had never seen prey behave with such awareness and intelligence. Could he be preparing for her? Or was he unaware of her presence altogether? The human picked up a small, smooth stone, examining it in the moonlight. He placed it carefully on the ground, and then another. Forming a line, the huntress observed, her glowing eyes narrowing. There was logic in these actions, a purpose she could not yet comprehend. She realized this was no ordinary human. This was a mind that could plan, adapt, and survive in ways she had never seen. The jungle itself seemed to hold its breath as a human worked. A soft breeze carried the smell of wet earth and crushed leaves. Birds remained silent. Small creatures froze in place, and even the insects seemed to vanish into the night. It was as if the jungle acknowledged the presence of something extraordinary. The huntress felt it too, a strange electricity in the air. Her senses sharpened, her muscles tensed. Every instinct whispered that this night would change everything. The human now began stacking larger sticks, arranging them into a structure. It was not a simple shelter. It had lines, patterns, and angles that seemed purposeful. The huntress's mind raced, trying to guess his intentions. Was he building a trap, a signal, or something completely unexpected? Her curiosity grew, mixed with a growing respect, even admiration. This human was clever, perhaps cleverer than any prey she had ever encountered. Suddenly, he stopped and pulled a piece of cloth from his pack, spreading it over part of the structure. The huntress leaned forward slightly, her heart pounding. The human worked with patience, not rushing, not panicking. He tied the cloth carefully with vines, adjusting it until it was secure. The huntress realized she was witnessing a kind of intelligence that was rare, not just survival, not just instinct, but creativity and foresight. A faint rustling behind her made her pause. A small animal scurried across the branch she crouched on, and the human glanced up quickly. But instead of fear, he only smiled faintly, almost as if he had expected it. The huntress's heart skipped a beat. Was he reading the jungle, or was he reading her? The thought made her tighten her grip on the branch. Silent, hidden, watching, the human now moved to a nearby stream. Collecting water in a small container he had brought, he returned to the shelter, pouring it carefully into a carved depression in the ground. The huntress's curiosity grew with every movement. This human was preparing something, but for what? She felt a strange pull in her chest, a need to know, to see, to understand. Her hunter instincts were giving way to something new, something unfamiliar. As the night deepened, the human lit a small fire, using techniques that showed knowledge and skill. The flames flickered, casting dancing shadows across the jungle floor. The huntress crouched, amazed at how calm he was, how methodical. He was not afraid of the jungle. He seemed to belong here. And yet, she could not shake the feeling that he had done this before, that somehow he had faced dangers like her and survived. She moved a little closer, her glowing eyes reflecting in the firelight. The human looked up suddenly, his eyes sharp, but he did not scream or run. Instead, he studied the darkness, listening, sensing. As if he knew someone watched, the huntress froze, her presence betrayed by a faint whisper of leaves. The human tilted his head, smiled faintly, and returned to his work. Her heart raced. This human had sensed her, and yet he remained calm, his confidence, intelligence, and bravery fascinated her, confused her, and challenged her instincts. The human now worked faster, constructing something larger, stronger. The huntress realized it was not just a shelter. It had compartments, angles, and clever reinforcements. It was meant to survive, to last, not just a temporary refuge. Her curiosity reached a peak, mixed with tension. She wanted to step out of the shadows, to see fully, to interact. But her instincts screamed caution. warning her that revealing herself could be dangerous. Suddenly, a strange glow appeared in the clearing. Faint but noticeable. The human paused, looking at it, eyes wide, full of curiosity and perhaps recognition. The huntress froze, her mind racing. What was this glow? Was it natural, or had the human created it? She realized the Hun had become something else, something unpredictable. The human was no longer just prey. He was a puzzle, a mystery, and perhaps something extraordinary. The jungle fell silent again, as if waiting for the next moment. The huntress crouched low, hidden in the shadows. She had never been this close to a human before, and she had never felt such uncertainty. Her instincts told her danger, but her mind screamed fascination, and in the quiet darkness, she realized that tonight the jungle was no longer just her hunting ground. It was a stage for something greater, something she did not yet understand. The human moved, the firelight flickered, and the strange glow pulsed faintly. The huntress watched, her eyes wide, her body tense, and her mind alive with questions. The jungle was quieter now, as if it too was holding its breath. The huntress crouched behind a thick tree trunk, hidden in shadow, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the drip of water, the distant call of an unknown creature, echoed loudly her ears. She had followed a human for hours, her curiosity stronger than her hunger, and now she sensed something different, something she had not expected. The human moved carefully, carrying long sticks and large leaves, arranging them in patterns that the huntress could not yet understand. He seemed calm, methodical, almost as if the jungle belonged to him. But it was the way he worked with purpose, as if he had a plan for every stick and stone, that drew her attention. The huntress's instincts screamed that this was more than survival, more than simple shelter. There was a strategy here, and it was clever, precise, and deliberate. She crept closer, careful to avoid broken twigs and dry leaves. Her glowing eyes followed his every move, tracing the lines of the structure he was building. And then she saw it, something that made her freeze, her heart racing. The human was not building a simple shelter. He was building something that could protect more than himself. She tilted her head, confused, her instincts clashing with her curiosity. The human carried a large branch, weaving it into the frame he had built. He moved with a confidence that suggested he had done this before. But what struck her most was a small platform he had created, just high enough for a creature like her to notice if she were watching. The huntress felt a flicker of surprise and a strange, unexplainable tension. Could it be that he had built this with her in mind, even without knowing she existed? The huntress crouched lower, her mind racing with possibilities. Every fiber in her body wanted to step out of the shadows, to confront him, to understand. But instinct warned her to stay hidden. The human continued, oblivious to her presence, his movements precise and careful. He tied leaves to branches, reinforced corners with stones, and created small barriers that suggested intentional planning. Her curiosity grew with each passing moment. Stronger than anything she had felt before, she watched him adjust the angles of a wall, ensuring that it could withstand rain, wind, and perhaps even attacks. The huntress's mind spun, trying to predict his purpose, but the human remained a mystery. He worked quickly, but carefully, balancing speed with precision. Every movement was deliberate, calculated, intelligent, and utterly human. Suddenly, he paused and looked around, his eyes sharp, scanning the darkness. The huntress froze, barely breathing. The human's gaze swept past the shadows where she hid. She realized then that he might have sensed her presence, but he did not flee. He did not panic. Instead, he returned to his work, calmly and confidently, as if he had known she was there all along. The huntress's mind reeled, a strange mixture of surprise, admiration, and tension rising inside her. She had hunted many prey before, but none had this combination of skill, intelligence, and awareness. She felt an unfamiliar pull, a desire to learn more, to understand, to see the truth behind his actions. Her instincts screamed danger, but curiosity had become stronger than fear. The human moved to a nearby stream, gathering water in a small hollowed stone. He returned to the structure and poured it carefully over parts of the ground. The huntress watched, noting every detail, every action, every movement. It was clear that the human was not just building a shelter. He was creating a place of safety, a place of protection. And possibly, she realized with a jolt, he had considered creatures like her. The The huntress leaned slightly forward, her glowing eyes narrowing. Could be that this human, this small, fragile creature, had not only survived the jungle, but had prepared for her presence? Her mind raced, filled with questions she could not answer. Why would a human prepare a shelter for an alien hunter? Was it instinct foresight, or something more profound, something she could not yet comprehend? She continued to watch as the human began weaving leaves together, creating a soft platform. It was clearly designed to support more weight than just him. The huntress felt her pulse quicken, a strange tension filling her chest. The human worked quietly, deliberately, unaware how much he had captivated her. Every movement he made was full of thought and purpose, and the jungle itself seemed to hold its breath, acknowledging that something extraordinary was unfolding. Suddenly, the human picked up a small piece of glowing moss and placed it carefully inside the shelter. The faint light illuminated the platform, creating a soft glow that reflected in the huntress's eyes. She felt an unfamiliar sensation, something like curiosity mixed with awe. The human's actions were deliberate, intelligent, and almost kind. It was as if it anticipated that someone or something might need this shelter. And for the first time, the huntress wondered if her hunt had been unnecessary. Her instinct screamed that she should attack, that this was her prey in the jungle, her territory. But her mind told her to wait, to watch, to understand. She felt a strange, unexplainable pull, something she had never felt before. The human's calm intelligence and deliberate preparation challenged her every expectation. And as she crouched in the shadows, she realized that this hunt was no longer about capture. It was about discovery, learning, and perhaps something greater. The human stepped back, surveying the shelter, his eyes scanning every corner in detail. He adjusted a leaf here, a branch there, ensuring it was stable and strong. The huntress noticed that the structure seemed inviting, protective, and safe. She felt her curiosity turn into fascination, and a strange tension filled the air. The huntress, who had entered the jungle to kill, now found herself intrigued, puzzled, and drawn to this human. And then it happened, something that froze her in place. The human looked directly in her direction, eyes sharp and knowing. For a brief moment, the huntress wondered if he could truly see her, but he smiled faintly, a smile that carried calm confidence and understanding. He returned to the shelter, and she realized that a human was not afraid of her. He had prepared this place, perhaps even for her, and the thought sent a jolt of tension and curiosity through her. The jungle seemed to grow still, holding its breath for what would happen next. The huntress remained in the shadows, hidden but utterly captivated. For the first time, she understood that this human was unlike any prey she had ever known. And as the moonlight fell on the small shelter, she realized that the hunt had changed. It was no longer a hunt, but a discovery of something new, something extraordinary. The human worked quietly, the shelter glowing faintly, and the huntress watched, unsure of what would happen next, but certain that nothing in the jungle would ever be the same. The jungle felt alive with tension. Every rustle of leaves and whisper of wind magnified in the huntress's ears. She crouched low behind a thick tree trunk, glowing eyes fixed on the human below. Her instinct screamed to strike, to complete the hunt she had trained for, but curiosity, stronger than any hunger or training, held her back. This human was no ordinary prey, and something about him made her question everything she knew about humans. The human moved slowly, carefully inspecting the shelter he had built. The platform glowed faintly from a moss he had placed earlier, casting soft shadows across the jungle floor. He adjusted the walls, tightened vines, and repositioned leaves with deliberate care. The huntress felt her pulse quicken, realizing that this human's intelligence was beyond her expectations. He had built more than a shelter. He had built a place of thought, of planning, of foresight, and the thought that he may have considered her an alien hunter left her both intrigued and tense. She shifted slightly, testing a fallen branch beneath her. It snapped softly and she froze, every muscle coiled for reaction. The human looked up sharply, eyes scanning the shadows for a heartbeat. The huntress feared he detected her fully, but then he smiled faintly, a knowing, calm smile, as if he had sensed her presence all along. Her glowing eyes narrowed, both impressed and wary. Had he truly sensed her? Or was it instinct, survival, or something else entirely? The human returned to his work, seemingly unaffected. He moved with confidence, each step deliberate, yet careful not to disturb the jungle more than necessary. The huntress crouched lower, torn between instinct and curiosity. Every fiber in her body told her to strike, yet every thought pushed her to watch, learn, and understand. She felt something strange, something new for her species. Respect, fascination, even intrigue. Her curiosity grew with each passing moment. Stronger than anything she had felt before, she watched from adjust the angles of a wall, ensuring that it could withstand rain, wind, and perhaps even attacks. The huntress's mind spun, trying to predict his purpose, but the human remained a mystery. He worked quickly, but carefully, balancing speed with precision. Every movement was deliberate, calculated, intelligent, and utterly human. Suddenly, he paused and looked around, his eyes sharp. Scanning the darkness, the huntress froze, barely breathing. The human's gaze swept past the shadows where she hid. She realized then that he might have sensed her presence. But he did not flee. He did not panic. Instead, he returned to his work, calmly and confidently, as if he had known she was there all along. The huntress's mind reeled, a strange mixture of surprise, admiration, and tension rising inside her. She had hunted many prey before, but none had this combination of skill, intelligence, and awareness. She felt an unfamiliar pull, a desire to learn more, to understand, to see the truth behind his actions. Her instincts screamed danger, but curiosity had become stronger than fear. The human moved to a nearby stream, gathering water in a small hollowed stone. He returned to the structure and poured it carefully over parts of the ground. The huntress watched, noting every detail, every action, every movement. It was clear that the human was not just building a shelter. He was creating a place of safety, a place of protection, and possibly, she realized with a jolt, he had considered creatures like her. The huntress leaned slightly forward, her glowing eyes narrowing. Could be that this human, this small, fragile creature, had not only survived in the jungle, but had prepared for her presence? Her mind raced, filled with questions she could not answer. Why would a human prepare a shelter for an alien hunter? Was it instinct, foresight, or something more profound? Something she could not yet comprehend? She continued to watch as a human began weaving leaves together, creating a soft platform. It was clearly designed to support more weight than just him. The huntress felt her pulse quicken, a strange tension filling her chest. The human worked quietly, deliberately, unaware of how much he had captivated her. Every movement he made was full of thought and purpose, and the jungle itself seemed to hold its breath, acknowledging that something extraordinary was unfolding. Suddenly, the human picked up a small piece of glowing moss and placed it carefully inside the shelter. The faint light illuminated the platform, creating a soft glow that reflected in the huntress's eyes. She felt an unfamiliar sensation, something like curiosity mixed with awe. The human's actions were deliberate, intelligent, and almost kind. It was as if he had anticipated that someone or something might need this shelter. And for the first time, the huntress wondered if her hunt had been unnecessary. Her instinct screamed that she should attack, that this was her prey and the jungle her territory. But her mind told her to wait, to watch, to understand. She felt a strange, unexplainable pull, something she had never felt before. The human's calm intelligence and deliberate preparation challenged her every expectation. And as she crouched in the shadows, she realized that this hunt was no longer about capture. It was about discovery, learning, and perhaps something greater. The human stepped back, surveying the shelter, his eyes scanning every corner in detail. He adjusted a leaf here, a branch there, ensuring it was stable and strong. The huntress noticed that the structure seemed inviting, protective, and safe. She felt her curiosity turn into fascination, and a strange tension filled the air. The huntress who had entered the jungle to kill now found herself intrigued, puzzled, and drawn to this human. And then it happened. Something that froze her in place. The human looked directly in her direction, eyes sharp and knowing. For a brief moment, the huntress wondered if he could truly see her, but he smiled faintly, a smile that carried calm, confidence, and understanding. He returned to the shelter, and she realized that the human was not afraid of her. He had prepared this place, perhaps even for her, and the thought sent a jolt of tension and curiosity through her. The jungle seemed to grow still, holding its breath for what would happen next. The huntress remained in the shadows, hidden but utterly captivated. For the first time, she understood that this human was unlike any prey she had ever known, and as the moonlight fell on the small shelter, she realized that the hunt had changed. It was no longer a hunt, but a discovery of something new, something extraordinary. The human worked quietly, the shelter glowing faintly, and the huntress watched, unsure of what would happen next, but certain that nothing in the jungle would ever be the same. The jungle felt alive with tension. Every rustle of leaves and whisper of wind magnified in the huntress's ears. She crouched low behind a thick tree trunk, glowing eyes fixed on the human below. Her instinct screamed to strike, to complete the hunt she had trained for, but curiosity, stronger than any hunger or training, held her back. This human was no ordinary prey, and something about him made her question everything she knew about humans. The human moved slowly, carefully inspecting the shelter he had built. The platform glowed faintly from a moss he had placed earlier, casting soft shadows across the jungle floor. He adjusted the walls, tightened vines, and repositioned leaves with deliberate care. The huntress felt her pulse quicken, realizing that this human's intelligence was beyond her expectations. He had built more than a shelter. He had built a place of thought, of planning, of foresight, and the thought that he may have considered her an alien hunter left her both intrigued and tense. She shifted slightly, testing a fallen branch beneath her. It snapped softly, and she froze, every muscle coiled for reaction. The human looked up sharply, eyes scanning the shadows for a heartbeat. The huntress feared he had detected her fully, but then he smiled faintly, a knowing, calm smile, as if he had sensed her presence all along. Her glowing eyes narrowed, both impressed and wary. Had he truly sensed her? Or was it instinct, survival, or something else entirely? The human returned to his work. Seemingly unaffected, he moved with confidence, each step deliberate, yet careful not to disturb the jungle more than necessary. The huntress crouched lower, torn between instinct and curiosity. Every fiber in her body told her to strike, yet every thought pushed her to watch, learn, and understand. She felt something strange, something new for her species. Respect, fascination. Suddenly, he paused, turned to face the glowing moss platform. He knelt and placed a hand gently on it, adjusting the angle of the light so it illuminated more of the structure. The huntress's curiosity deepened. She realized that this human was not only clever but considerate, thoughtful, and intentional in ways she had never seen. Her instinct screamed danger, yet her mind raced with possibilities. Was this human trying to communicate with her? Or was he simply preparing a sanctuary, unaware of her presence? The huntress's muscles tensed as she moved slightly closer, silently, cautiously. Branches bent under her weight. Leaves whispered softly. But the human did not flinch. He looked up at the faint shimmer of moonlight to the canopy, eyes sharp and aware. Then he spoke softly, a low murmur, words the huntress could not understand. Yet the tone carried calm confidence, and perhaps an understanding of the jungle itself. Her instincts wavered. She had never encountered prey that reacted with such composure. The human rose and stepped closer to the edge of the shelter, holding a small torch-like tool. The glow illuminated his face, revealing determination, patience, and intelligence. The huntress felt a tension she could not ignore. Every instinct screamed that she should attack, yet something in the human's calm bravery stopped her. Her glowing eyes watched, analyzing, calculating, yet her mind was now filled with questions instead of plans. The human finally spoke again, louder this time, though the words were still unknown. His tone carried warmth, confidence, and a hint of curiosity. The huntress crouched lower, feeling a flicker of something unfamiliar, something almost human, an emotion she did not recognize in herself. She realized then that this hunt was unlike any other. It was no longer about capture. It had become a study, a test, and perhaps an opportunity she had never imagined. Without warning, the human took a slow step toward the edge of the clearing. He seemed to move carefully, deliberately, aware of every sound, every shadow, every rustle of leaves. The huntress tensed, every instinct screaming caution. Her body wanted to strike, to end the chase, yet her mind told her to wait and observe. This was a moment that could change everything for hunter and prey alike. The human knelt beside the platform, reaching toward a bundle of leaves. Then he paused, looking directly in her direction, eyes sharp and steady. The huntress froze, unsure if he had truly seen her. For a heartbeat, time seemed to slow, the jungle holding its breath. Then he smiled faintly, almost knowingly, and returned his task. Her instinct screamed in confusion. Had he truly sensed her presence, or was it coincidence? The huntress felt something stir inside her, an unfamiliar feeling of anticipation. She realized that she wanted to see, to understand, perhaps even interact with this human, her claws flexed, not in aggression, but in readiness. Every shadow, every leaf, every branch became part of her awareness, and yet her mind was no longer focused solely on hunting. It was focused on discovery, on understanding, on curiosity she could not ignore. The human worked quietly, adjusting branches, reinforcing corners, testing angles. She watched in awe as he moved with patient skill and intelligence. Her glowing eyes narrowed as she analyzed each motion, each decision, each small detail. It was clear this human was not just surviving. He was planning, thinking, and preparing in ways she had never seen. Then the human paused, standing slowly and looking at the glowing shelter. He straightened a branch, adjusted a leaf, and stepped back, surveying his work. The huntress crouched lower, every muscle coiled with tension. Suddenly, the human turned fully, facing her directly, eyes sharp, steady, and unafraid. Her heart raced. This was the first direct encounter, and she did not know what would happen. The human took a slow step forward, holding out a small piece of fruit. As if offering it, the huntress froze, every instinct screaming, yet curiosity overpowered fear. She felt a strange, unexplainable pull toward him, toward the gesture, toward understanding. The jungle seemed to fade away, every rustle, every call, every shadow replaced by the suspense of the moment. She realized that the hunt had changed. The rules had changed. The human was no longer prey. He was a mystery, a challenge, and perhaps an ally in the making. The huntress moved slightly, testing the distance, every step calculated. The human remained calm, offering patience and subtle understanding. A soft breeze carried the smell of the jungle and the faint scent of the human. Every detail heightened her senses. Every movement sharpened her awareness. For the first time, she realized that this encounter could lead to something unexpected, unprecedented, and extraordinary. The human stepped closer. The glowing shelter illuminated his face. The huntress crouched low, unsure whether to step into the open or remain hidden. Her instincts screamed caution, yet her curiosity, her fascination, her intrigue demanded action. And as their eyes met for the first time, the jungle seemed to hold its breath. The hunt had ended, but something new, something unknown had begun. The human offered understanding, patience, and perhaps friendship, and the huntress, predator and observer, felt the stirrings of something she had never imagined possible. The jungle seemed to hold its breath, every rustle of leaves, every distant call, every faint whisper of wind carried weight. The huntress crouched low on the branch, glowing eyes fixed on the human below. Her instincts screamed caution, yet curiosity and fascination pulled her closer. She had followed him for hours, witnessed his intelligence, his patience, his care, and now, for the first time, she felt that the hunt might not end in violence. The human knelt beside the glowing shelter, moving carefully as if aware that someone or something was watching. He adjusted a vine, repositioned a leaf, and tested the structure's stability. The huntress watched silently, noting every movement, every calculated step. She realized this human had prepared not just for survival, but for unexpected encounters. Perhaps he had anticipated predators. Perhaps he had prepared for allies. And though she had intended to hunt him, she felt herself drawn to the order, care, and intelligence of his actions. A soft rustle of leaves betrayed her presence, and the human looked up sharply. For a moment, she feared he would flee or attack, but instead he smiled faintly, calm and unafraid. His gaze was steady, assessing yet welcoming. The huntress felt an unfamiliar pull in her chest, a mix of curiosity and cautious trust. She crouched lower, unsure whether to reveal herself fully, yet unable to look away. The human stood slowly, his movements deliberate and unhurried. He picked up a small piece of fruit and extended it toward her direction. The huntress froze, instinct screaming danger, yet something inside her urged her to move closer, every muscle tense, ready for either flight or attack. Her glowing eyes followed the human, noting his calm, patient demeanor. The jungle seemed to fade around her, leaving only the human and the glowing shelter in sharp focus. She took a cautious step forward, testing the distance. The human lowered the fruit slightly, silently encouraging her. The huntress paused, sensing his intelligence and intention. For the first time, she felt that the human might not be prey at all, that perhaps he was something entirely different. An ally, a mind to respect, a challenge to understand. The human spoke softly, words she could not comprehend. Yet his tone was gentle, confident, and somehow inviting. She crouched lower, listening to the cadence, the rhythm, the subtle nuances. Her instincts wavered between attack and curiosity. But curiosity won. She moved slightly closer, testing the air, testing his reaction. The human did not flinch, did not run, but smiled faintly, steady and calm. The huntress lowered herself fully to the ground, stepping into the open, every movement measured, cautious, and deliberate. The human watched her, eyes bright and calm, waiting, patient, aware, and as she approached, she noticed the small details he had built into the shelter. Every line, every angle, every reinforced corner was designed with thought, perhaps even for her. Her heart raced, a mix of tension, curiosity, and a strange sense of admiration. The human extended the fruit fully toward her, a simple gesture, yet full of meaning. She sniffed it cautiously, sensing no threat, no trick, only intelligence and intention. Her instincts screamed conflict, yet she felt drawn forward, compelled to understand carefully. She took the fruit in her claws, her glowing eyes never leaving his. The human nodded faintly, a subtle acknowledgement of trust, patience, and understanding, and for the first time, the hunters realized that the hunt might not be the end of their story. She moved closer to the glowing shelter, studying its design in detail. Every stick, leaf, and stone revealed thought, foresight, and intelligence. She crouched beside the human, silent and alert, and he did not flinch, did not retreat, did not show fear. Instead, he offered a hand, a simple gesture of cooperation and trust. Her glowing eyes hesitated. Then she placed one clawed hand near his, testing the gesture. The human smiled faintly, a small, knowing smile, and she felt a strange bond begin to form. The jungle around them seemed to quiet, acknowledging the unusual truce. No bird sang, no insect chirped, only the soft sound of leaves and the distant call of unseen creatures. The huntress crouched, her body tense, yet her mind racing with curiosity. She had never experienced such a situation. Prey that did not flee, predator that did not attack. And in this strange moment, she began to feel something foreign, something like respect, trust, or even understanding. The human motioned toward the shelter, gesturing for her to follow, cautiously. She stepped forward, observing every detail, every shadow, every angle. He guided her through the structure, showing reinforced corners, a small platform, and a safe place of rest. The huntress crouched, studying each detail, realizing the human had prepared more than a shelter. He had prepared a safe space. Perhaps even for her, her instincts conflicted, yet she could not deny the respect growing inside her. The human had not only survived the jungle, but he had mastered it, adapted it, and designed it with care. They spent the night in silence, sharing the space without words. The huntress watched the human closely, observing his habits, his intelligence, his care, and he observed her, noting her movements, her glowing eyes, her sharp instincts. The bond grew slowly, silently, an unspoken understanding forming between hunter and human. Every moment strengthened it, every shared glance and careful gesture, and as the moonlight filtered through the canopy, she felt an unfamiliar sensation. Trust. By dawn, the human had completed small tasks, reinforcing the shelter further. The huntress moved alongside him cautiously, learning, observing, participating. She realized that the hunt had transformed into something entirely new, a partnership, tentative and fragile, yet undeniable. The jungle around them seemed to sense it too, alive with anticipation, and though neither spoke words the other could fully understand, communication flowed, a silent understanding, based on intelligence, respect, and shared purpose. The huntress paused at the edge of the shelter, looking at the human. Her instincts had evolved, her curiosity fully engaged. She realized that this human was unlike any prey she had ever hunted, and as they shared the quiet, mysterious morning light, she understood something profound. Perhaps the jungle had given her a gift. Perhaps the hunt had been unnecessary, replaced instead by curiosity, trust, and something greater. And as the first rays of sunlight touched the clearing, the huntress felt the stirrings of a bond she had never known, a bond between predator and human, curiosity, and intelligence. And in that moment, the jungle seemed less dangerous, less wild, and yet infinitely more alive. For the first time, she realized that survival was not the only goal, that intelligence, respect, and cooperation could create something extraordinary. And in the quiet of the glowing shelter, predator and human stood, together, aware, alert, and yet connected. The jungle was alive with sounds of dawn. Birds called softly in the distance. Leaves rustled with a gentle breeze, and the faint scent of wet earth hung in the air. The huntress crouched beside the human, her glowing eyes still alert. Yet something had changed in her, something she could not name. She was no longer just a predator, and he was no longer just prey. The hours of silent observation, careful interaction, and shared space had transformed their relationship. The human moved quietly, adjusting the shelter one last time. Every stick, leaf, and branch reflected his intelligence, foresight, and care. The huntress watched him closely, noticing the small details she had missed before, the reinforced corners, the elevated platform, the careful placement of glowing moss. Everything seemed designed not just for survival, but for cooperation, for safety, for something greater. She felt a strange sense of respect, awe, and perhaps admiration. The human turned toward her and spoke softly, words she could not understand, but the tone carried patience, reassurance, and a subtle invitation. The huntress tilted her head, sensing the meaning behind the words. For the first time, she felt a connection with a human beyond instinct or curiosity. It was not trust entirely, not yet, but it was something close, a fragile understanding born of observation, intelligence, and mutual respect. The huntress stepped closer, testing the distance. She flexed her claws, not in aggression, but in readiness. The human remained calm, holding out his hand in a gesture of peace. He motioned toward the glowing shelter, inviting her inside. Every step she took was deliberate, measured, cautious, yet full of curiosity. The jungle seemed to watch them silently, aware that something extraordinary was unfolding. Inside the shelter, the human moved to show her the small compartments he had prepared, a soft platform for resting, a protected area for supplies, and a central glowing area for light. The huntress crouched low, studying every detail. It was clear that this human had planned for more than himself, and in that realization, she felt something stir inside her. Perhaps the jungle had not given her prey. Perhaps it had given her a partner, a mind to challenge hers, a presence to respect. Suddenly, a distant roar echoed through the jungle. The huntress froze, instincts screaming, muscles tensing. The human turned calmly, listening, but did not panic. He picked up a makeshift weapon, a sturdy stick, and moved toward the edge of the clearing. The huntress followed, careful, silent, ready for whatever lay ahead. Together, they approached the sound, a strange, powerful tension hanging in the air. A massive creature emerged from the shadows, its eyes glowing faintly, muscles rippling under thick skin. The huntress instinctively crouched, ready to strike, but the human stood his ground, calm, confident, prepared. He lifted his weapon, positioning himself not to attack recklessly, but strategically. The huntress observed, her instincts mixing with curiosity. This human was clever, aware, capable, and dangerously intelligent. The creature growled, circling them, assessing the situation. The huntress flexed her claws, prepared to attack, yet something in the human's calm held her back. He moved with precision, guiding the creature subtly, using body language and sound to communicate. The huntress watched in awe, realizing the human had mastered not just survival, but interaction, strategy, and intelligence beyond instinct. The creature paused, then backed away slowly, seemingly accepting the human's authority. The huntress exhaled softly, a tension she had not realized she held releasing. The human looked at her, a small smile of acknowledgement and trust, and for the first time, the hunters realized that they were stronger together than apart. They returned to the shelter, the jungle around them alive with unseen watchers. The human tended to small tasks, reinforcing corners and checking the glow of the moss. The huntress followed silently, observing, learning, appreciating. She felt her instincts change, transforming from predator to guardian, partner, and ally. The human noticed her attention and gestured, inviting her closer. She stepped forward, cautious yet willing, accepting his guidance. A silent understanding formed, stronger than words, stronger than instinct. Hours passed as they worked side by side, The human showed her how to arrange materials, how to test ability, how to prepare for dangers. The huntress observed carefully, learning, adapting, respecting the human's intelligence, and in return, she provided insight into the jungle, warning him of unseen threats, sensing movements and sounds invisible to him. Together, they built not just a shelter, but a fortress of trust, strategy, and survival. The jungle around them seemed to acknowledge this union, alive with quiet, watchful energy. By the afternoon, the sun pierced through the canopy, illuminating the glowing moss and the structure they had fortified. The huntress crouched beside the human, studying the clever design. She realized that the human had transformed the jungle itself into a tool, and in that, she felt a stirring of admiration, respect, and perhaps something deeper. For the first time, she understood that survival was not just instinct, not just strength. It was intelligence, cooperation, foresight, and trust. The human stepped back, looking at the shelter with quiet satisfaction. The huntress mirrored him, her glowing eyes reflecting the sunlight and the glowing moss. A bond had formed, fragile yet undeniable, predator and human, observer and partner, hunter and survivor, connected by understanding and respect. She flexed her claws, not in threat, but in recognition, and he nodded, acknowledging her presence, her strength, and her intelligence. As night approached again, they settled beside the glowing platform, side by side. The huntress remained alert, instinct sharp, yet her mind focused on this new alliance. The human offered a small portion of food, a gesture of peace and understanding. She accepted, sensing no threat, only trust, patience, and intelligence. The jungle around them seemed calm, alive, aware. It was no longer a hunting ground, but a place of strategy, foresight, and shared purpose. The huntress realized something profound. This human had transformed her, from a hunter driven by instinct into a being capable of curiosity, trust, and even cooperation. And he too had changed, learning from her presence, understanding the jungle through her senses. Together, they were stronger, sharper, and wiser, and though neither spoke words the other fully understood, communication flowed. A bond had been forged in silence, tension, and shared intelligence. The night grew darker, stars piercing the canopy, and the glowing moss casting soft light across the shelter. The huntress lay beside the human, watching the jungle, alert yet relaxed. She felt the stirrings of something she had never felt before. Not fear, not hunger, not curiosity alone, but connection, partnership, and perhaps even respect for this tiny, clever, brave creature beside her. The human looked at her, eyes calm, confident, intelligent. He offered a soft gesture, a nod of recognition and alliance. The huntress inclined her head, acknowledging the bond, and for the first time, she understood that the jungle had not given her prey. It had given her a partner, a challenge, and a mind to respect. The hunt had ended, but something far greater had begun. Together, predator and human, they would face the dangers of the jungle, stronger, wiser, and united. And in the quiet of the glowing shelter, the jungle seemed to whisper a truth long forgotten, that survival was not just about strength nor intelligence alone. It was about cooperation, respect, and the courage to trust. And as the stars shone above, predator and human sat side by side, silent, alert, and aware that their story had only just begun.